Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council work session for Monday, February the 2nd, 2026. We have two items on the agenda this evening. First one being information about pursuing a future justice center. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir, and I'm going to ask Mr. Murdoch to make the presentation for this item tonight.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're going to be talking just briefly tonight and giving you an overview of what staff has been working on for literally probably now almost 3 years in preparation for a possible justice center. As many of you are aware, we've followed pretty significant steps to get to tonight here. So I just want to make sure and kind of recap where we are at here and why this topic is on the work session agenda tonight. In 2022, the City Council approved the space needs study that was done by Hofer Welker, and that was completed throughout the entire calendar year of 2022, with a final report coming to staff in 2023, outlining essentially what we would need to adequately equip our Justice Center for not only our police department, but for our municipal court and for emergency management. So we have that study that was completed there in early 2023. At the same time, as we were coming out of the pandemic, the City Council set aside in the reserve fund some COVID funds. You may remember that we had received from the federal government. The intent of those funds was for them to be used along within a no tax increase general obligation bond for the construction of the Justice Center. Those funds are still there. Okay, so we are still able to use those particular funds. Fast forward just a little bit here. We just recently passed the public safety sales tax, right? So that we could hire those 7 new police officers. And as a result of that, we now have everything in place, including the land for the Justice Center, which staff would now tell you we would propose these steps for the general obligation bond to be placed on the ballot in November of this upcoming year, 2026, okay? We do have to make that decision and place that ballot initiative by August 25th of this year. That's when it would be due to the county. And so we're bringing that to you tonight, essentially to see if the council is favorable to this general timeline. I do want to let you know that kind of where we are at with this, and we've done a lot of the prep work, obviously, is that depending on the council's opinion tonight, should you want us to move forward with this, our immediate request would be that we would issue an RFQ for conceptual design of the Justice Center. There's a lot of reasons for that. We'd want to make sure that the public obviously has an idea of what we're talking about. The firm would be able to provide us with some conceptual renderings based on the space needs study that we've already completed. So we'd be able to sit down with that particular firm. We just want voters to make sure that they have a clear understanding of what we are trying to build, right? To make sure that they know that it's not only for the police department, but also for the municipal court and for emergency management. Right now, and we rely obviously on finance here to provide us with these numbers, but a no tax increase bond right now, if we would pass it, could generate slightly more than $31 million for the construction of the Justice Center. And we currently have $3.9 million in the reserve fund. We do have some comparisons of recent justice centers that are going around in the area that we would also be able to utilize to make sure that we have some comparables as we would go forward in the design process. That's where we are at tonight. It is a very general overview, right, to make sure and get kind of where the council stands on this. But there have been a lot of steps to get to tonight. And so we bring it before you tonight to see if we would like to move forward with the RFQ. And I think Mr. Fearborn has just a couple things to add, and then we'll get some feedback.
And I recognize November seems a long way off right now, but as we learned from the RAC and a little bit of background between Mr. Murdoch and I on doing some buildings like this, you want to give maximum amount of time for public feedback when you're doing a building like this. You want to be as transparent as you can so that people aren't going, well, you said this, but it's kind of this. You got to be real careful with the concept plans. Again, the council would have until July 25th on the timeline. That would be the last deadline before the council would have to make a final decision on putting it on the ballot in November. So even July seems like a little bit of time off but there's prep work that needs to go into that to even get to the council and go, do you want to do a bond issue in November? I will say that we are starting, and we've been to the council twice now on this particular issue. We are starting to get into a position where we're going to need to be paying off bonds to keep the 7170 that we would need for this particular no tax increase bond issue. Otherwise, we're going to start to lose bonding capacity on that, and we would lose it pretty rapidly in the first non-dip that we would do something like that. Like have it and have the amount that we would have to spend on a justice center in the future without asking for a tax increase. That concludes staff report on this item, sir. What we would just be looking for is a general nod to start the process. We're not looking for any finalization of bond issues. We're just looking to start the process tonight with just a general nod. Did not want to surprise you sometime in March or late February, March or late February with a item on your agenda that was calling for a design concept on something that you had not heard about. Happy to answer any questions.
And before we take that next step, anybody have, I'm sure there are comments and questions that might arise out of just what's been presented tonight. Mr. Baker?
I guess the first question is, you said the reserve fund for the COVID, how much is in that fund?
We have 3.9 million left.
Okay, so that's that fund.
Yes, sir.
And then 31 million, is that the total price or?
That's our bonding capacity that we would have total. We would not anticipate getting to that number.
So the cost of the Justice Center, do we have any idea?
When we did the initial space needs study, we asked them to get as big a number essentially as they could with us for the largest building possible. And that came in at around $28 million for a 50,000 square foot building when we will not go that big.
And that was
So I just
November of
wanna make-
2022, so we would anticipate significant inflationary factors on that.
I guess my only concern too would be with Senate Bill 3 floating around Jeff City and the huge impact that could have. Doing some research myself, when we say a no tax increase bond, I mean, that is for the time of issuance, but if property values were to go down and we get locked in, I mean, once you vote on it, we are obligated by law to pay this bond, and that means increasing.
Why would property values go down? I guess would be
I
my
think they're
question.
overinflated right now. I think with the adjustment of interest rates forthcoming and that, I could see, and the only way they're gonna come down is if the market starts to get to where we have an excess of homes, and then they're gonna come down. That may be 2 or 3, 4 years down the road, I don't know. My concern is the Senate Bill 3 with the judge supposedly ruling by February 10th whether or not it's going to be on the April ballot or it's going to have to be kicked down the road or go to the Missouri Senate. How much of a risk is that going to be that if we lose, I think you had said potentially $2 million out of our budget if that passes? Is this something that we're dealing with now, not knowing the ramification of that down the road?
There's a couple of different deals that are, well, first of all, the case is in Cole County. It's in front of Judge Lindbergh. Judge Lindbergh has kicked it back so that Ms. Hanaway can file a response to the defense response that the school district's case number, if you want to look it up, 25-AC-CC07281. You never know till you know, but when they give the okays for things like extensions, which he backdated the extension by 4 days to give him even less time for a response, he was pretty critical of the issue just on its face when he was turning that back in. It doesn't guarantee a final response, but it does look like could signal that Senate Bill 3 may not make it through. But again, you don't know till you know. The other issue that has come up in the side conversations relative to both the senior tax credit and the legislation that has been proposed is cities are legally obligated to make these debt service payments. So at some point in time, are they going to remove the debt service portion from the credit? Because you have to do that or you're going to go bankrupt. So that's another item that is floating around both down at the legislature and the court system, which would apply back to the senior tax credit as well. Best information I have right now, sir, on that particular item.
But at today's assessment, isn't it what we're making our assumptions from?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't think our assessment's gonna go down. It's generally not the case. I don't think historically that has ever happened, as long as I've lived in Cass County. But I think we have the 3.9 million to at least do potentially the RFQ to move forward so that there is a concept design. And we have an idea, a much better idea about what it would cost, what it would look like, things of that nature.
Tonight would be to put a nod from the council, so we're not surprising you. Again, even approval of a concept plan, RFQ, is over a month off. But tonight, all we're looking for is to begin the process to put the final step in place for when we decide to go for a bond issue.
Well, it's not really even the final step, is it? It's kind of the first step. Final
Well,
steps are kind of down the
with all
road.
the other items, though,
Sure.
we've bought the land, we've, set aside $4 million for 4 years now.
We
Everything
did
is in
purchase
place.
some land, though. We did purchase that land.
Yes.
A couple of years ago.
Yes.
In preparation.
Well,
so-
and then purchase the second parcel to make it complete on the Jackson Street as
Exactly,
well, sir.
yeah,
Which we are gonna actually reclaim part of that building and save a little bit of money.
yeah. Sonia, did you have a question?
My question was just what we were expecting the cost of the Justice Center to be, which Mr. Murdoch already answered. And then I guess if we don't, you mentioned that our bonding capacity will decrease potentially. So like we're at the prime time for this to happen, or?
We can keep the 7170 in place as long as there is bond to be paid off. It has to be in a call period. There are certain parameters with that. If we were to hit a period where that could not happen, you see that 7170 forced down to, basically it would be an amount where a Justice Center would no longer be feasible without a tax increase at that point
Yeah,
in the future.
yeah. Don, did you have something additional?
I just,
Oh, sorry.
just to finish that up, so the timing of this is really relevant and really important actually to do it right now versus kicking that can down the road.
Yes, I would say so.
So I do think whether we do it now or if it's in a year, I think the RFQ is part of the process, so I would fully support that. I mean, we've got the money for it. I think it's going to be key that we do get this in front of the people and they, fully understand geo bonds and all that and how they work and what it applies to them. So that's part of the process. To me, you're going to spend it either way, whether we spend it this year or next year or in 3 years. To have that in place, I don't think it would change over time that we do it. So, I'm in support of let's get something conceptually so people do understand it and we have a better idea of what we're doing here, so.
Yeah. Mr. Mills?
My only concern a little bit is perception and the fact, again, with the timing issue, if this would go on the ballot and fail, it's always tougher to come back a second time. We just, did our law enforcement sales tax. We're showing progress on that and showing what we're doing and everything like that. I don't think there's any problem with going through design and doing this because we know we're going to need it. I just personally think putting it on this November ballot is too soon. It needs to go on next year's ballot next year show people, you know, we've had over a year with the law enforcement sales tax, we've staffed up, we're managing that well, and now here's kind of the next step versus people just that feeling like, well, gosh, they just asked me for some more money for law enforcement. Even though we're saying this is not a tax increase, there's going to be a lot of people, I think, that just that perception. So I think putting it into 2027 as far as being on the ballot, I think would make a lot of sense. And I think how we couch it when you bring this to us to approve this RFP, I know there's going to be a lot of clamor and talk, and I mean, I think we kind of need to make that decision whether we want to put on the November ballot or whatever. And if we're not going to put on November ballot, you know, make kind of a big deal that we're putting out the RFP. We want to give the public plenty of time, you know, to understand it, look at it, that sort of thing, and get them, have some time to build momentum to get them excited about it and see the value of it. And also, you know, I just think putting on a ballot next year would be a better way to go personally.
Yes, Mr. Barber.
Yeah, I would support the RFQ, and we're really not talking about the ballot issue right now, are we? We're talking about whether we get the information and whether that everything lines up, then we'll talk about whether we put it on the ballot in November. Is that correct?
The council has until July 25th to make
Right.
that
Right now,
decision.
we're just saying, let's do an RFQ, get us all educated on what this is gonna take, how much it's gonna cost,
What it's going to look like.
what's gonna look like, maybe look at some justice centers around, those type of things, and then decide whether we put it on the ballot.
Yeah, I was actually foreseeing us having a couple of town hall meetings, because it is such a big issue, allowing people to come in, touch, feel, hear about the thing. It is a lot of money, and I think that would be the right way to go. Sonia?
My other question, I was thinking, Kevin kind of brought up a little bit, is staff prepared in the sense that we know what we're gonna need with the new officers? I know that PD has done some looking around at other facilities around here that are new, but is staff prepared to say, okay, here's what we need, we have these new officers, here are things we're lacking that we want to be sure we build in, what's new that we might want to have in our facility?
I would say we are prepared. One of the great things about not only the space needs study that was done was Chief and myself were a part of that particular committee, and he has stayed engaged in that particular process. We have now multiple comparisons of justice centers around the region that have been built even after the space needs study was completed. So we have some of the best practices to draw from, especially in terms of not only the building, but the surrounding land and how to organize even ingress and egress points, safety of parking lots, all of that kind of stuff that we've been able to go and tour and see the different facilities around the region. So I think that we're in a really good position to be able to articulate to any firm that we choose through the RFQ of exactly what we're looking for on that particular piece of property and some of the things that are essentially the must-haves that we're going to need throughout.
The goal was to make sure that the building that is designed and eventually built will last for decades. The police department downstairs, especially when we get the new officers in, is going to be crowded. Sharing court in the city council chambers has done well for us up until now, but with a growing city, we have growing dockets, and so there'll be areas in here. Of course, with the police department comes dispatch. We have to be planning for decades of growth and different aspects that would apply to dispatch, having to look at all of those particular items in here. What is emergency management going to look like? But all of the numbers that we were compiling really advance not only the space needs, the equipment needs, the FFE in total, but the numbers that will be associated, what's the police department going to look like in 2040 and 2050 and 2060 down there, and how many officers are we going to have? As Mr. Murdoch indicated, a lot of tours have already been completed, just see what folks have, been out to Gardner, been up north, and to that end, sir, it has already generated quite a bit of discussion. We have been contacted by a lot of people sending us their brochures on their various police departments. So, yeah, the talk is definitely already out there for sure. So you are correct in thinking the second we bring this to them, to you all on the RFQ, just the first step, last step in getting started, we'll have some discussions, I'm sure, that will be out there.
Okay. Everybody good with moving forward? All right. I think we have a consensus. All right. Unless there's something else, we'll move on to the next item, city survey.
Call on Mr. Murdoch again.
One of the good things about getting ready to do this RFQ is, and to some degree you, the council has already mentioned this, is that we want to make sure and get as much resident input as possible. And this leads nicely into the presentation that Ms. Harmer is going to give to you all tonight as part of a staff recommendation to move how we get input from our citizens here in Raymore. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Harmer.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. So I'm sending down 2 pages for you. One is just an overview of what I want to cover tonight, the main points, and then another is a sample of a survey from another city using this program. So tonight, I just want to get this information out to you and ask for your support in modernizing how we get our resident feedback. And our goal is, of course, timely, useful, and actionable data from our residents. And also, we want to improve how we listen to our residents. So how we've done surveys in the past, the ETC Citizen Survey, of course, we do every other year. It's a very long paper survey that's mailed out to a few hundred of our residents, and the goal is to get at least 400 surveys back so that it can be a scientifically valid survey, and it is, and also so that it represents the population as a whole. What works is that it is scientifically valid, it does allow for long-term comparisons, and it's a broad snapshot in time. But of course, the results take actually months to get. It's a very long, arduous process. The results take months to get back, and then they're put into a large PDF, which we share with you and put on our website for anyone who's interested. And so anyway, slower turnaround. It's long, so that discourages some people from taking it. So now we want to now that the community expects faster communication from us, we would also like more frequent feedback from our residents and not just a snapshot every other year. So, and we want to know more about their feelings in the areas of our services, our decisions, and our planning. So this technology will allow us to collect this scientific data faster and more efficiently, and also this program has an evergreen resident registration, so any resident who wishes to be a part of this can, instead of just hoping you're one of the 500 people that the random sampling is sent out to. So we can continue to grow resident participation as much as we want. So this program is called Flash Vote. It uses short text-based surveys. The surveys are 5 questions, and they generally take a minute or less to complete. They are delivered either by text message, email, or phone call. It's whatever the participant chooses, which way they opt in to get these. And the great thing about these surveys is that once we send a survey out, we can get that data within 48 hours, and those results are also emailed to our residents so that they can see the results of the survey they just took within the last day or 2. So, old versus new, one long survey every other year versus a few shorter ones throughout the year, and we can still ask those same questions that we want to measure resident satisfaction with infrastructure and resident priorities. We can still track those things that we've been tracking with the ETC survey, just in shorter, little easier to take surveys throughout the year. So again, benefit for us, faster feedback, more frequent data points throughout the year. We anticipate higher participation due to the ease of the surveys. When we get that, when that dashboard is made available to us, we can actually view better demographics, understand who we're hearing from. We can, if we have an issue in one ward, we can see the answers from each ward, and we can see, so we can, and we can also track. Let's say we're sending out a survey, and someone who doesn't live in Raymore gets the survey. That's fine; they can still take it, but everyone is vetted who's a participant, so we can tell who the non-panelists are that answer that survey, so it's still going to be valid for our residents and our participants. And just like we always have, we're going to use the data to track satisfaction with our services and programs. The residents, we will invite them through our various online and offline communications channels to participate. We feel like it will be pretty easy to get that first set of panelists and then continue to grow and promote it all throughout the year. We anticipate, or we can do 4 to 6 surveys a year. And basically, I think that's, am I covering it all? I think that's
You
covering it
have.
all.
I'm going to just add just a couple things
Sure.
here, and then we'll take some feedback on it. The first thing is one of the things, even in my time in this particular role that we've gotten comments on is the lack of the turnaround of data of the ETC survey in terms of sending it out and then 4.5 months later finally getting results that you all get to see. But a lot of times even the residents who take the survey, they've lost track of it and don't even sometimes, they're just like, what were the results? And so trying to even figure what that is. The other part of that becomes difficult is if there is an issue that somebody needs addressed, and it can be a broad issue of infrastructure or whatever, if we're now 5 months down the road before even staff knows the way the residents are feeling about it, it's harder for us to take and make that an actionable item as a part of the survey that they are actually taking. We found over the last couple of surveys that we typically had a very, very narrow pool of people who were taking the surveys. In this particular case, as Ms. Harmer said, anybody that lives in the city now could sign up to be a part of this particular survey pool, and we can filter those results to make sure that we're getting those answers from residents, just as she said, by ward or however we would like to divide the data. And I love the aspect that then the residents who take the survey get to see it immediately after they take it as well. So there's no mystery in what the final results of the survey were. They're going to see it. It gets sent right back to them, which is really, really good. I do think we would probably max out the surveys those first couple of years because we want to make sure and get the data points that we need from our infrastructure, public safety, and parks to make sure that we have the continuity of those questions that were a part of ETC, and so that data can continue with us. But then, as she said, then you can now add items that are right at this particular moment if we need to. For example, ask a question about a justice center. We could, right? And you can get actionable results from that very, very quickly. So we just think that in this day and age, this is probably a good direction to go to make sure that we're giving our residents as much opportunity to provide that feedback as possible.
Mr. Feuerboard, did you have something to add?
Thank you, sir. I was skeptical at first because I grew up with the ETC survey. I was convinced that perhaps technology has changed a little bit since 2012 when we started that particular process. What has convinced me on this is we can still ask the same questions. There are questions on the ETC survey that ETC creates for us that are rigid. And we know from the results of those sometimes in that particular time and place that the survey is going out, there is a misunderstanding about what the question is actually asking. And so we're getting late and incorrect data back on where people fall on the line with a particular item. It is a more dynamic tool that if we need to make changes to it, the changes can be almost immediate. Again, we get 6 passes a year on this particular item, so whatever has to be changed within that, and we're getting the data back on the questions that we're repeating every single year, which is great, as far as being able to react to it.
Okay. Mr. Barber?
Thank you. So we trigger the surveys. You would put some questions together and you would trigger it. And the reason I asked that question is, it seems like every transaction I do, I get a survey. And puts me in survey fatigue. And so I like the idea. I like this, that you get to set the time when it goes out and the questions, and it's not just a random bang, bang, every time they call City Hall, pay a bill, they get asked a survey.
Correct.
Okay, then I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Mills?
Just an idea, if, one way I think if you want to get a bigger pool of people on your list to participate, if we got something out through the Facebook page from the snow removal and got something out right away and say, hey, we'd like your feedback on the snow removal, and have them sign up to be part of our city feedback, because that was our biggest post, and so that would build your pool that you'd have really quickly, I think.
Mr. Baker, do you have something?
And that's why I was kind of thinking too, that we take advantage of snowstorms, although by the time this kicks in, we may not have a snowstorm until 12 months from now. But what other avenues, I mean, besides Facebook, would we engage, like utility bills or anything that we might be able to get a QR code out to where they could scan it and sign up? And
We're prepared to put this out on all of our communications channels. So a full page ad in the summer issue of the Review, that's a little bit down the road. In addition to social media, we could do paid ads that are targeted at our residents. We can also do the weekly report. We have 1,000 subscribers on that. Even through our, our Parks Monthly emails that we have more than 1,000 subscribers, I believe, or maybe 800 or so. But, we have multiple ways of print and online communications avenues to share this information. And the vendor also, if we're really lacking in a certain area or demographic, they also will push that information out to areas where we need a little more participation.
Sonia?
Thank you, sir. Few questions I had. First of all, do we know what the overall age demographics of the city are?
I know our medium age, I believe, is 42.9 or something like that. I know it's in the beginning of the budget. I think it's 42.9.
Okay, I'll look there, thanks. I was just curious, because I know in the nonprofit world, that's always a concern, who, where are our people in age, and we know that has a connection to how they like to communicate. And so I'm just afraid that if we do this text, email, and phone call only, that we might start excluding some people who really do prefer the paper. Secondly, I know like with water bills and things, we're trying to push people to be more electronic, but we also still continue to have the printed magazine that goes out, because we know some people like that. But we don't really have any information from people about their preferred communication. Like, do we?
We do in the ETC citizen survey, actually.
Okay.
A lot of it was, I think the highest rank was email, followed by maybe the Review magazine.
There was email, review, and then online, and then the last was print, which is one of the reasons that we're before you tonight. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I was just thinking, if we have 1,000 followers on Facebook, that's really a small percentage of the people in the city. The other question, one other big question I have is, a lot of times in surveying people, we know people like to be able to do it anonymously. Is there a way for people to respond to these surveys anonymously?
It is anonymous to us, but the vendor does make sure that the people that are responding are actual residents, so they require all of their email or their address and name, so they check to make sure that they are actually residents and not just someone pretending to live in Raymore.
I think that could be an obstacle. for people responding if they have to put in all their personal information in order to be able to do it?
Just once to sign up.
Mr. Barber?
Yeah, I have more of a comment, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but we struggled before to get even 400 people to respond to our old surveys, right?
It's generally right over 400. So 400 is the minimum that they want, and 430, I think, was what they got last time.
We had to wait quite a while to get that information in.
The last
So-
2 years, we've extended by 6 weeks to even try to get that number, to get them back to us.
So if we could double that or triple that, that would be a huge, I think, huge amount of data that we weren't getting before. And it sounds like that could even be more than that, potentially.
I think to put your mind at ease, FlashVote has a fairly robust website. I've kind of followed them on a couple of occasions when I received emails from them, and they have some significant input from the communities that they serve, and it's actually pretty cool what they do and how they put it together. And you can get information within like 48 hours, some pretty decent feedback. Mr. Mills?
Well, and you could, if there's a concern about maybe older people and technology, I mean, by using something like this, you could easily go up to Foxwood Springs for a day and they invite everybody and you can walk them through the thing and they get on their phones and do it then, or you could go to Morning View. I mean, I was at a large organization and it was trying to vote on where a trip was going to be. And I mean, there was like 3,000 people. And I mean, it actually was tabulating it on the spot, you know, and you could see the little things going across. But I mean, it made it really easy because everybody's kind of, they explained how to do it, you know, and you hit that text link and answer the questions and you know you're going to get that back. And so once they learn how to do it once, it should be pretty easy. So if we have some senior populations, we could possibly offer, hey, we could come up and do, you know, and show them how to do it and let them do the survey right there. Get on their phones, do the survey type thing.
Mr. Barber?
I'll respond to that because Foxwood Springs is in my ward. And I think you'd be surprised what these people are doing with technology. Yeah, I'd say probably better than 80% have a smartphone and have an email and know what to do. So you remember a lot of those people there were around in the 60s. So, I mean, they understand technology and how technology has changed. So it's, but I'm one that likes paper, you know, so, but I think I'd like that type of survey to be much easier.
Tom?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. We're in Medicare, Brian and I, and you know what? Our people are 65 and older, and you wouldn't believe 98% of my people get their emails now. Now, 80% open them, so I got to call them. But they get them, and they want them. And when it's technology, guess what they want? They text me. Sometimes they call, they text me, they email me all the time with questions. 8 o'clock at night, there they are. But the older people are very savvy to today's electronics. I mean, AI stuff, they've adapted to that for the most part. And I think it'd be a great opportunity. You can sit on the people who do paper like water bills, send that thing into it. Send the thing about the surveys. It can be quick and simple within 48 hours. We want to know what you feel about the city, what you like or what you're not comfortable with. Please tell us. We need to know. Just really send that out on any type of paper billing. But I think it would be a good thing. I think that flash vote stuff will work smoothly into the future because we will have the information. The people will be more instead of 400 people or whatever out of 20-something, 6,000. We could at least get more of that idea of what they want, and it's better for the city to quickly adapt to that within days as they go through these different surveys, and we can be more expedient, and people will be happier with it. I really believe in that.
So, Jim, will this require a budget amendment and an item to come before the council, or can we,
No, sir.
we can go ahead and,
We're replacing one
Move
with the
forward.
other.
okay?
I did to the water bill statement because we know that now that we provide all the automated ways to do water bills, nobody cares about opening up their water bill anymore. They just kind of pitch it and automatically pay. When we were having that discussion about that particular kind of contact, I actually brought up that it might be a very, very good outreach and public relations issue if we did send to every resident, just like we did with the ETC survey, a letter from the mayor, which is we want to hear from you all. And at the bottom of the letter, have a QR code, just scan this and you're signed up for it. That would be if we get to the point where where our normal areas of outreach aren't working and we still need, or we want to increase the pool. I think that would go a long way towards telling people we want to hear from you, because we want to hear from them.
Sure. Sonia?
I like that idea, or even a postcard, just a postcard in the mail to say, hey, we want to hear from you. But there are still a lot of people who don't trust QR codes, who don't trust the technology piece. My only other, so 3 things. First, concern is that one of the things I loved about ETC was it was kind of a random mailing. It could potentially go to people who we aren't really engaged with. I feel like with this, we're just going to keep hearing, unless we're really careful about it, we're just going to keep hearing from the same people that we're already engaged with. And it's not a way to find out from those people who aren't already in our ear, so to speak. Just a concern with that. I was curious about what the cost comparison is. Is this actually going to save us some money versus working with ETC? And then finally, just curious if we were planning to do several right away to kind of knock off all those ETC questions. Are we thinking 1 per quarter, or have we even thought about that yet?
So we would start with 1 per quarter. We don't want to fatigue anyone also with a lot of surveys. And then the pricing is we budget $15,000 for the ETC survey every other year, or so we budget $7,000 a year, is $7,500 a year to cover it. This is $9,900 a year. There are some additional fees with the ETC survey sometimes that Ryan could speak more to, but essentially it's
almost a dead even break between the two. So I know he doesn't like me using that kind of financial terminology, but it's very, very close to just being break even, because we spend almost a little over $17,000 to process all of the ETC stuff every 2 years. And this is $9,900 a year.
I heard her say 7,000.
We budget per year, $7,500 a year for the ETC survey. So then it adds those for the 2 years to $15,000, and then we have a miscellaneous to cover the processing and stuff that ETC then charges us as a part of the reporting mechanism.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Melissa.
I do wish the company had a different name. I've expressed this to both of them because Flash Vote makes it sound like we're putting everything out in the world to a vote of the people, and
Right.
that's not what this
I
is
know,
about.
it
It's
is
getting
not,
a survey.
I know, that was my fear of it too as well. But if you, like I said, if you do go on their website, they've got a couple of videos on there to show you how the process works. It's kind of cool. I like it. All right. Anybody else have anything?
So the thing I like the best about it is, like Mr. Fairborn said, if we get these results in, and there's like 1 or 2 questions that we feel like we got to drill down better on to really get that information, you could very quickly redo that and send that out. And that way we verify, okay, we really do, they understood what we were asking, or, that sort of thing. We re-ask it just like you'll see sometimes with surveys, they'll ask the question 2 different ways. That way they see if they get the right result. And we can easily do that and get the information that we need to verify really quick, versus the old way, you're having to kind of make a lot of assumptions. And here we can actually verify our assumptions.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Great. All right, well, that concludes our issues that we had formally. Is there anything under, usually we have other, is there anything under other? I know we were going to move into executive session, but we're going to push that tonight on personnel matters, and so we're not moving into executive session. So unless there's anything under other, anyone have?
We have nothing, sir.
Anybody? Okay, then we'll stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.